How many of you have an investment property? Well, you know what? There are 48.5 million rental units in the United States, according to HUD, and nearly half of these are owned by individual investors. Is it time for you to consider selling? Take a look at this video and we will give you some guidelines to maybe assess your current investment property and is this the time to consider selling? Stay tuned. So here we are right now. It's 2023, getting near fall. And we're seeing a lot of changes going on in the marketplace. Mortgage rates are now at a 20-some year high. Rent prices, which have been increasing steadily since COVID, are starting to slow down in the rate of increase, in which they're starting to plateau. Home prices are starting to slow down in their increase as well, as everybody is trying to understand the new dynamics of these increased costs. And there's only so much money that people have. And at some point in time, they have to pull back and decide that either they're not going to buy or they're not going to rent. Or is this an opportune time for you to be able to take advantage of the fact that we have such a low supply that if you put your rental unit on there and target an owner-occupant, that may be the ideal way for you to convert your property into cash. And right now, a lot of people are thinking about getting some cash and accumulating that. So if we've seen this increase in the rent prices and the demand for limited supply of available units, what also happened is that there's also now an increase in the amount of rental units that are coming online. With the shortage of rental properties for the past 3-4 years, a lot of developers are developing rental units. You know, we've got a couple just in our own local community, got 175 units coming on in the next 12 months. So that's going to put an awful lot of supply out there in the marketplace. And what's that going to do? It's probably going to temper the amount of rate increase you can have on your rental unit. And in fact, it may also bring about some reduction in rent prices, which I'm telling you, there's a lot of tenants out there who would appreciate that. So given the fact that you may not be continuing to, increase your rent every year, the costs are still going up, is this a time maybe to consider selling your investment property? Here's some things to consider as you make a decision. So we talked about the rental prices that are slowly starting to normalize and get more stable, except for New York City, and we know that that's an outlier anyway. As of 2023, rental price increases are starting to stall and stabilize. Outside of New York City, which we know that New York City is an exception to the rule anyway. Tenant budgets are being challenged by persistent inflation and increased rents. And there's a limit we're starting to see, that the asking price of rental units is either being reduced or the days on market for that rental are starting to increase. Meaning that it's very possible that you may go a month without having a tenant. You actually may go more than a month without having a tenant. And how does that work into your calculus for your investment, for your cash flow, for maybe the mortgage you have due on that rental property? So we've got this increase of units coming on board. The new supply is coming on next 3 to 12 months, and the number of units is significant enough nationwide to maybe create a surplus of rental units. This will lead to a downward pricing on rents as consumers will get a choice. And they're going to have different ones to choose from. And if your rental unit doesn't stand out compared to somebody else's, or maybe somebody else's is cheaper than yours, you may not get yours rented as quickly as you like. So it's something to keep in mind. If your cash flow model requires a certain level of income, a reduced rent or delay in keeping occupancy high is going to affect your investment's performance. It's unlikely that you can refinance the unit profitably, as interest rates for investment properties are at a 20-year high. So keep in mind that you see what the mortgage rates are for residential properties. And currently, in August of 2023, they are at 7.5%. And that's for a residential unit. An investment property requires a higher interest rate and a higher level of down payment. So you probably have to have at least a 25% equity position in that property, and if the residential rates are 7.5%, you as an investor are probably going to be paying 8.5% or more for investment grade mortgages. So you've got to figure out how that calculates in, because you probably didn't buy that property at 8% mortgage rate. You probably bought it at maybe a 3% mortgage rate, or maybe you paid cash for it. But if you think about trying to take money out and just doing a refi, it may be a little more challenging. So you're going to have some bumpiness in the next year or so as these market forces work their way through the system. And that, you might want to consider, how does that factor into your timeline of things? How does that factor into either your retirement planning, your investment planning, your needs for cash? So given that there's a shortage of homes, would it be possible now to sell your property to an owner-occupant? Could this be an option? Let's take a look. Here are some factors to consider. Okay, one, we all know being a landlord is more trouble than it's worth. Did the promise of being a landlord, meet with the reality of being a landlord? Be a landlord, to have all these investment properties, easy money, mailbox money, and then the reality of being a landlord set in. Has mailbox money been replaced with the midnight phone calls telling you about the overflowing toilet? Does the rent come in a timely manner, or are you chasing it down every month? Maybe you've got some delinquent tenants. Do you feel trapped to stay close to home in case you are needed? So you thought that having investment property was going to allow you to have freedom. How much freedom do you have if you're worried about somebody calling with a problem and you're not close by to go and fix it? And because you're not close by, you're going to have to call in somebody else who's going to cost you more money to go and have it fixed. So is that actually hindering your ability to have the freedom that you thought you wanted? Is your property worth more than when you bought it? Been considerable price appreciation over the past 3 years. Could you make more selling it to an owner-occupant than you could as an investment property, given the level of appreciation we've had in properties, and given the fact that you probably bought it at a good price and it cash flowed really well based upon the rent you're getting? Can you really get another investor looking at your property may not see the same level of return? And it may be much more attractive, and you can probably get more money for it to selling it to somebody who's actually going to live there. Could you redeploy the proceeds to another investment or use them for some other purpose? You may be sitting on quite a bit of appreciation. Does that cash come in handy? Is this a time in which maybe it's good for you to have a little bit of cash set away instead of locked up in an asset that's really difficult for you to turn into anything liquid? You really can't go and do a cash out refi or take a line of credit against it, because the interest rate's going to cost you way too much. You may only have one way for you to turn that into having a liquidity event, and that's actually selling it. Is positive cash flow on the horizon? If you were not cash flow positive with the mortgage rates at 4%, you sure won't be cash flow positive at 7% or more. And you can't refinance your way out of this one. Is there rental rate pressure ahead that may be jeopardizing your cash flow model? Is where your investment property is near where one of these developers is building a 175 unit, apartment complex? Does that $2,000 a month that you thought you were going to get, is that going to be jeopardized because you've got a developer who's going to discount like crazy in order to fill his spaces and maybe charge $1,700 a month? And all of a sudden you need to charge $1,700 a month if you're going to get yours filled. Ask yourself this question. If this property were available to me today, would I buy it? Would I buy it as an investment property? Does it make sense? If the answer is no, then other investors are going to have the same answer. Maybe your life has changed. One thing is certain. We have seen more change in our world and lives in the past 3 years than we have ever anticipated. Have your needs and or situation changed since you purchased the property? Do you have a new set of priorities that can be aided by the sale of this property? Can a sale help you with these new priorities? You thought your property wouldn't need maintenance, and you underestimated the cost of repairs, especially ones that require professionals like plumbers and electricians and HVAC technicians. When things break, you can't put the repairs off. You have a duty as a landlord to provide a livable space to the tenant. Quiet enjoyment is what it's called. So you've got to make sure that all that is working when it breaks. Have you had more breaks lately than you thought you were going to have? You can have a property management company manage it for you and handle the repairs, but that's going to cost you money too. Maybe about 10% of what your rental income is. How does that factor into your cash flow model? Let's face it, the market is changing. Is the demand for rentals strong, or is it starting to taper off a little bit? We live in an area in which we're seeing now more rental units staying on the market. It used to be where you didn't have any units on the market. One would come on and there'd be, 5, 10 people trying to compete for that same unit. In fact, some people would actually be paying more than what the asking monthly rent was. That's changed. I'm seeing more sitting on the market now. And they're having to reduce their price in order to attract and be competitive. So if there are a lot of rental units being developed and coming on the market, it's going to affect your ability to attract tenants at the price you need. Is there demand in the market for your property to be for an owner-occupant? If the supply is low, the demand may be greater with people who want to buy us and live with their family. Let's say if you own a townhouse, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, or 4-bedroom townhouse, I bet you'd have much more success in trying to sell that to an owner-occupant right now than you would for another investor. And then you'd be able to cash out. Maybe you've experienced a major life event. Life happens, then real estate gets in the way. Have you experienced a major life event that's making taking care of the property an unnecessary distraction or burden? Here are the things that can take a priority over anything that we have as far as investment-wise. Birth of a child, marriage, divorce, death in the family, health problems, career change, relocation. Any of those things require your attention, and they will distract you from your investment property. And maybe the investment property becomes more of a burden than an attraction. Are there better ways for you to generate income? Yes, real estate can bring in passive income, but how much activity on your part is required? Can you generate passive income more passively? Have you had a conversation with your financial advisor? Not your buddy down at the bar who's betting on Bitcoin, but a financial advisor who's looking at the holistic picture of your financial health. Have you talked with that person about your investment property and maybe some thoughts about what you could do? So give some thought to these and any other factors we haven't mentioned. But keep this in mind. Sometimes the best time to act is when others are not. If you decide you sell when everyone else does, then supply will increase and you may not get the best price for your property. If you like this video, hey, give us a like, give us a subscribe, put some comments down there so you can be notified when we have other videos come on this. We hope you like this content. Our job is to try to provide you information and knowledge so that you can be a better educated consumer in all aspects of real estate. Have a great day.